Do you believe that Jewish students feel safe on your campus?
I think there is anti-Semitism in society, and
I'm not talking about society, and I appreciate your diversion of the question. I'm talking about the university. So I would like to know, because you're so educated, and you are, and you tout yourself at that, and you've earned that, what do you think the professor meant? Hello?
I believe it was a celebration of the terrorist attack on
Right.
October 7th.
Right. Did you have any conversations with this professor?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to America First. Today we're diving deep into yet another disgraceful display of academic leadership failing our students and our values. Before we get started, if you appreciate the work we do here, exposing the radical left's stranglehold on our institutions, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue bringing you the truth that mainstream media won't touch. And if you really want to support our mission, head over to patreon.com/AmericaFirst, where you can become a patron for as low as $5 a month. What you're about to see is absolutely infuriating, and it perfectly encapsulates everything that's wrong with our higher education system today. We have Representative McClain for Michigan, and I have to give her credit where credit is due, absolutely grilling Dr. Lyons, the Chancellor of UC Berkeley, about anti-Semitism on his campus. And let me tell you, what we witness here is nothing short of a masterclass in how these academic elites dodge, weave, and deflect when confronted with the consequences of their radical ideology.
Now I recognize the gentlelady from Michigan for her 5 minutes of question, Ms. McClain.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing. I want to start with you, Dr. Lyons. You're the Chancellor at the University of California, Berkeley, and you've been at the university for how many years?
I was an undergraduate there and came back on the faculty just over 30 years ago.
Okay, so you've been around, you've seen a lot of things. Do you believe that Jewish students feel safe on your campus?
I believe that most Jewish students feel safe on our campus.
You think there's any that don't?
Yes.
Yeah, why do you think that is?
Well, I think there are Jewish people that don't feel safe in lots of parts.
I'm not talking about lots of parts. I'm talking about the university in which you are in charge of. Why do you think that is?
I think there is anti-Semitism in society, and
I'm not talking about society, and I appreciate your diversion of the question. I'm talking about the university. So why do you think Jewish students don't feel safe at your university in which you're in charge of? Just curious.
Well, I think part of safety for most people is, some of it is physical, some of it is more emotional, and am I being harassed, but not necessarily being confronted with potential violence. So I've admitted already there is anti-Semitism on campus, and I think that
and I'm asking a simple question. Why do you think that is? And we've spent almost 30 seconds you avoiding the question.
Well, I do believe that public universities are reflections of society, and I believe that the anti-Semitism on society is present on our campus.
Do you believe you can influence the direction and how people feel on your university? Do you have any influence on that? Do you believe the actions that you or your staff or faculty members take have influence on that?
Yes.
I would agree. Are you committed to taking the action to making sure that all Jewish students, as well as all students, feel safe on your campus?
I am committing to striving to reach that goal, correct.
Wonderful. Okay. So just quickly, if a black student's home was vandalized with a noose and racist graffiti and a note was left saying that you're next, would you consider that an example of racism or discrimination?
On its face, personally, yes.
Wonderful. Well, in December of 2023, while you were a senior executive there, a Jewish student's home was robbed and a note was left saying, F you. They wrote out the real word. Free Palestine from the river to the sea. You think that's helpful for the Jewish students?
No.
No. What action did Berkeley take?
I believe that predated my time, but what I can say
It
is
predated your time as chancellor, but you were there as a senior executive.
well, I don't know this for a fact sitting here, but I am almost sure that that was reported and that was investigated, and
And what was the result?
it is
I
hard.
mean, it's great that we report it and we investigate it, but you notice the one thing that's missing is like the result. Okay, we're gonna, all right. In your testimony, you rightly acknowledged Hamas's invasion of Israel as a terrorist attack. Dr. Makdi, a professor of history at Berkeley University, on the other hand, said, I could have been one of those people who broke through on the siege on October 7th. What do you think he meant by that?
I can't speak to.
I know, but
Not
you're a
in-
pretty intelligent man, or at least come off as a pretty intelligent man. What do you think he meant by that?
I'm not.
Put yourself in a Jewish student's,
Look, I think I want to separate the phrase from the person. If I heard some other person.
We can't separate the phrase from the person because of this professor who works at the university in which you are in charge of. So as much as we want to separate it and dance around it, let's not, because the person that works at your university said this. So I would like to know, because you're so educated, and you are, and you tout yourself at that, and you've earned that, what do you think the professor meant? Hello?
I believe it was a celebration of the terrorist attack on
Right.
October 7th.
Right. Did you have any conversations with this professor?
I've had conversations with this professor, yes.
Yeah, and what was his response? And what were the conversations?
He's a fine scholar, and
That's a fine scholar that spews hate, and the people who pay, the students, don't feel safe. That's great, he's a fine scholar. I'm sure there's a lot of murderers in prison that are fine people too, fine scholars. But they do some pretty nefarious and heinous acts. So you want to explain what the conversation was?
Gentlelady's time has expired.
Saved by the bell. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Right from the start, you can see Dr. Lyons trying to play word games. When asked directly if Jewish students feel safe on his campus, he says most Jewish students feel safe. Most. Think about that for a second, patriots. We're talking about one of the most prestigious universities in America, and the Chancellor can't even say with confidence that Jewish students feel safe. He admits some don't, and when pressed on why, he immediately tries to deflect to society at large. This is the classic progressive playbook, folks. Never take responsibility, always blame society, always point to some vague systemic issue rather than addressing the specific problem in front of you. Representative McClain doesn't let him get away with it, and she shouldn't. She keeps bringing him back to the university, his university, the institution he's supposed to be leading. And what does he do? He keeps trying to wiggle out of it. For 30 seconds, 30 whole seconds, this man dances around a simple question about why Jewish students don't feel safe on his campus. 30 seconds of taxpayer-funded salary going to waste while he tries to avoid taking any actual responsibility. This is what we're dealing with in our universities, patriots. Leaders who can't lead, administrators who can't administrate, and supposed educators who can't even give a straight answer to a direct question. But it gets worse. When Representative McClain finally gets him to admit he has influence over campus climate and secures his commitment to making all students feel safe, she then presents him with a hypothetical scenario. A black student's home vandalized with a noose and racist graffiti with a threatening note. Would that be racism or discrimination? Of course it would be, and Dr. Lyons immediately agrees. Then comes the bombshell. In December 2023, while Dr. Lyons was a senior executive at Berkeley, a Jewish student's home was actually robbed, and a note was left saying, and I quote, "F you, free Palestine from a river to the sea." Let that sink in for a moment, patriots. A Jewish student was targeted, their home was violated, and they were threatened with eliminationist rhetoric. From the river to the sea, is not a peaceful slogan. It's a call for the complete destruction of Israel and the displacement of Jewish people from their homeland. And what does Dr. Lyons do when confronted with this? He claims it predates his time as Chancellor. But Representative McClain doesn't let him off the hook. She points out that while it may have predated his chancellorship, he was still a senior executive at the university. He was there. He was part of the leadership structure. And when pressed about what action Berkeley took, he gives us this weak response about how it was probably reported and investigated. Probably reported. Probably investigated. This is the level of certainty we get from someone who's supposed to be leading one of America's premier educational institutions. And Representative McClain nails it when she points out what's missing from his response. The result. What actually happened? What consequences were there? What was done to protect Jewish students and send a message that this kind of hatred won't be tolerated? The silence is deafening, patriots. Because the truth is, these universities have created an environment where antisemitism is not only tolerated but often encouraged under the guise of academic freedom or Palestinian solidarity. They've allowed their campuses to become breeding grounds for hatred, and when confronted with the consequences, they shrug their shoulders and claim they're just reflections of society. But then it gets even worse. Representative McClain brings up Dr. McCarty, a history professor at Berkeley, who said, and I quote, "I could have been one of those people who broke through on the siege on October 7th. October 7th, patriots. The day when Hamas terrorists murdered over 1,200 innocent people, including babies, children, and elderly people. The day when terrorists raped women, kidnapped families, and committed acts of barbarism that shocked the civilized world." And a professor at UC Berkeley said he could have been one of those terrorists. He could have been one of those people breaking through to murder innocent civilians. This is what passes for academic discourse at one of America's most prestigious universities. Dr. Lyons tries to separate the phrase from the person, but Representative McClain doesn't let him. You can't separate the phrase from the person because this professor works at the university Dr. Lyons is supposed to be leading. This isn't some random person on the street. This is someone who's being paid by taxpayers, who's teaching our children, who's supposed to be shaping young minds. When finally pressed, Dr. Lyons admits that he believes the professor's statement was a celebration of the terrorist attack on October 7th. A celebration of terrorism. A celebration of murder. A celebration of rape and kidnapping and barbarism. And this person is teaching at UC Berkeley. But here's the kicker, patriots. When Representative McClain asks if he had conversations with this professor, Dr. Lyons says yes. And what was his assessment? The professor is a fine scholar. A fine scholar who celebrates terrorism. A fine scholar who identifies with murderers and rapists. A fine scholar who makes Jewish students feel unsafe on campus. Representative McClain's response is perfect. She points out that there are probably a lot of murderers in prison who are fine people too, but they still do heinous acts. The point is crystal clear. Being a good scholar doesn't excuse celebrating terrorism or making threatening statements that endanger students. This entire exchange perfectly illustrates what we've been saying for years about the rot in our educational system. These universities have been captured by radical leftist ideology that views America and Israel as the greatest threats to world peace, while excusing and even celebrating the actions of terrorists and authoritarian regimes. The fact that Jewish students don't feel safe at UC Berkeley is an accident. It's the predictable result of years of indoctrination, of hiring professors who hate America and Israel, of creating an environment where anti-Semitism is rebranded as anti-Zionism and given academic respectability. And the leadership of these institutions, people like Dr. Lyons, are either complicit in this transformation or too cowardly to stand up against it. They've allowed their campuses to become hostile environments for Jewish students, conservative students, and anyone who doesn't toe the progressive line. This is why we need to take our universities back, patriots. This is why we need to demand accountability from these academic leaders. This is why we need to stop funding institutions that promote hatred and division while claiming to champion tolerance and diversity. The double standard is obvious to anyone with eyes to see. If a professor had said he could have been one of the people storming the Capitol on January 6th, he would have been fired within hours. The media would have covered it wall to wall. There would have been investigations and resignations and calls for reform. But when a professor says he could have been one of the terrorists who murdered innocent Israelis, he gets to keep his job. He's defended as a fine scholar. His statement is separated from his person, as if words don't matter, as if the things we say don't reveal who we are and what we believe. This is the state of higher education in America today, patriots. This is what we're paying for with our tax dollars. This is what we're sending our children into when they go to college. An environment where hatred is celebrated, where terrorists are lionized, where Jewish students are made to feel unsafe, and where the people in charge refuse to take responsibility for any of it. The time has come to demand better. The time has come to hold these institutions accountable. The time has come to stop pretending that academic freedom means freedom from consequences. When professors celebrate terrorism, when they make students feel unsafe, when they use their positions to promote hatred and division, there need to be consequences. We cannot continue to allow our universities to be breeding grounds for anti-Semitism and anti-American sentiment. We cannot continue to fund institutions that hate the very country that gives them the freedom to operate. We cannot continue to send our children to places where they'll be indoctrinated with hatred and taught to despise their own heritage and values. Representative McClain did an excellent job in this hearing, but it's just the beginning. We need more elected officials with the courage to ask tough questions and demand real answers. We need more people willing to stand up to these academic bullies and call them out for their failures. The fact that Dr. Lyons' time ran out just as he was about to be pressed further about his conversation with the terrorist-sympathizing professor is telling. These hearings are often more theater than substance, but at least they expose the rot for all to see. Every American who cares about our country's future should watch this exchange and understand what we're up against. This isn't just about one university or one professor or one administrator. This is about a systematic transformation of our educational system into an anti-American, anti-Semitic indoctrination network. The solution starts with awareness, which is why we do what we do here at America First. We expose the truth, we call out the hypocrisy, and we demand better from our institutions. But awareness alone isn't enough. We need action. We need to vote for leaders who will hold these universities accountable. We need to support alternative educational institutions that actually teach American values. We need to demand transparency and accountability from every university that receives public funding. Most importantly, we need to remember that this fight isn't just about politics or ideology. It's about the safety and well-being of our students. It's about Jewish students who don't feel safe on campus. It's about conservative students who are silenced and marginalized. It's about all students who deserve to learn in an environment free from hatred and intimidation. The failure of leadership we see from Dr. Lyons is not unique to UC Berkeley. It's endemic throughout our educational system. From kindergarten through graduate school, we've allowed radical leftists to capture our institutions and use them to promote their anti-American agenda. But we can fight back. We can demand better. We can hold these leaders accountable. And we can work to restore our universities to their proper role as centers of learning and inquiry, not indoctrination and hatred. That's what we're fighting for here at America First. That's why your support matters. That's why we need you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and consider supporting us on Patreon. Together, we can expose the truth, demand accountability, and work to restore American values to our educational institutions. The rot runs deep, patriots, but it's not too late to turn things around. It starts with awareness, continues with action, and succeeds through the determination of patriots like you who refuse to let our country be destroyed from within. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video where we'll continue fighting for America First, always.